think you would be well served to really investigate what's happening and not buy into all these people singing its praises. In my own tests, I found it to be pretty good in terms of the content it's producing. I didn't find too much biases, but it was definitely slower in most cases than ChatGPT. Hey, come here. We really need to talk. And I need every one of my followers to understand what is happening in the AI space. No, we're not turning into an AI channel, but AI is technology. We are a tech channel, and I feature it at times. But because this right here is so important, I need my followers to know, as it isn't exactly what the media and YouTubers are making it seem. I know, great. Another mission by Hill to fight the shill. But seriously, your data is important, and I think knowledge and a bit of caution is needed in this freak out narrative. DeepSeek cold dropped R1 last week, and it was one of the sneakiest and illest moves in AI model history that I've seen today. It shook AI gurus and billionaires to their core with their new and innovative approaches. It rocked the markets, causing the biggest single day loss by a stock, with NIVIDA taking a historical beating. Hey, I'm Hill Phantom, and I have been working with AI for over 7 years. And when I talk to people about AI, they typically fall in a couple different categories: seeking knowledge, individual users, business users, investors, or developers. If you are new to all this, just looking for a way to really easily learn what's going on with all this madness, well, welcome, Padawan.
Useful you shall find this.
If you are an investor looking to make them greenbacks and get all the intel, well,
welcome, sharks and deegans, you dirty bags.
And if you are a developer like I am, you know what time it is. It's time to eat, boys.
You flock of nerds.
But first, a very basic explanation of how AI works and why tokens matter. When you access ChatGPT or DeepSeek for that matter, each is pulling from their own LLM or large language model. Think of this as their each individual library that they go to in order to provide answers and reasoning. But in order to do this, it has costs in the form of tokens. So when you input text or upload a document, to example, to any one of these programs, it uses tokens as a form of processing units. So each time you have a transaction, it costs tokens to produce answers. Thus, we have token costs for each model. Tokens are also used as a form of measurement to measure speed of the transaction. We do this in something we call tokens per second. And further, each model has its own parameters, or how many tokens it can use per request and in response. And depending on what you're doing, how much that will cost. To borrow from the crypto world, each model has its own tokenomics. And this is how most chat-based or generative-based AI systems work. When it comes to token cost, DeepSeek's cost per token is reportedly 96% lower than that of OpenAI ChatGPT latest model O1. In terms of real dollars, DeepSeek costs about 14 cents for 1 million tokens. That's roughly 750,000 words, as compared to $7.50 per 1 million ChatGPT tokens. So while they perform similar, DeepSeek is more efficient and therefore has cheaper tokenomics, but is cheaper better. The way this is accomplished is because DeepSeek actually was able to use lesser than NVIDIA GPU models. They also do something we call passing fewer parameters when it's reasoning. You see, ChatGPT is about 671B in terms of the size of its library, but when it's doing reasoning or predicting the next word, it actually only uses 37B out of that 700B parameters. Whereas ChatGPT uses all 300B parameters in all of its use to predict the next word. So while the memory requirements may be the same in terms of compute resources, math operations, if you will, only about 1/18 of the resources are necessary. So when you're serving the same users at the same time, the same hardware from that alone serves about 18x more. Now that you understand those advantages, let's see how ChatGPT stacks up to DeepSeek in terms of the other stats. ChatGPT has a few models. 4.0, which is their free version that we use on ChatGPT if you're not a paying member. If you want access to O1, their newest model, is going to run you about $20 per month for limited access. And if you want unlimited access, it's $200 per month. Whereas DeepSeek has a few models, but its latest and greatest R1 that they just launched, and which is on par with O1 on many of the benchmarks and definitely outperforms 4.0 by far. But one of the most interesting developments of DeepSeek R1 is how they kept speeds high while having a 2x model size as compared to O1. But DeepSeek uses less parameters, but still gets parity of that of O1. And this is what has so many people worried. They've found a way to do this and arguably to do it just as fast as the latest GPT model, but they're using less resources and a bigger model, and it costs a fraction of the price. And in a power-hungry world that seems to be slipping into a global economic slump, it may be a revolutionary breakthrough in the AI space. Okay, it does get a bit more complicated than that. So let me try to explain in a non-techie way some of the other advancements that are really shaking things up. Folks at DeepSeek developed a new way to load balance and share the workload by dividing its model into various submodels. So when a task comes in, experts go out to produce reasons and answers. But one of the things about these experts, think of them kind of like little bots inside the AI verse that are going to answer your questions. Well, with DeepSeek, each one of these experts carries a special task or data type, and it can then go to the appropriate sub area of the larger model to get the information. And at the same time, other agents, if you will, or intelligent bots that crawl around, go to other areas of the library and get the other parts of the information that may be needed for the reasoning. This is all then monitored by their load balance agents that makes sure no one agent is overwhelmed with requests or workload. And if it is, it passes it to more free agents. Maybe something us humans can learn here. Okay, but this all sounds great on paper. But I think you would be well served to remember, China often lies or runs psyops to influence geopolitical and economic tides. They at times will also require their state-owned companies to run at a secret deficit while claiming it's cheaper. But in the end, they are just okay losing money for geopolitical impacts and disruptions in the US economy. And while some experts say they built it for $5 million, other experts point out it was more than likely more like $500 million, which is still quite good and a lot cheaper than what they built ChatGPT OpenAI for. But remember, most capitalists also like to spend a bit more and charge a whole lot more. So it's my strong belief both build numbers and learn numbers are a bit off. The low side on the China, and more than likely the high side by the billionaire boys club on the American side. But with all those things, does DeepSeek R1 live up to the hype? Well, today I'm going to test O1 and DeepSeek in terms of a couple different areas: content creation, math, reasoning, and code. Okay, in order to test out the content creation, we asked both systems write 5 viral YouTube titles for creating videos with AI. And one of the things we're looking for is just how fast it gives us a response. And then we'll look at each of these in terms of the quality of those response. So here we can see up top there where it says thinking, that's where it's going through its chain of reasoning or chain of thought. It says curating, capturing. So that doesn't give us real insight. It's more of what stage it's in its reasoning, not what the reasoning is. But here we can see it produced 5 AI titles. They're pretty catchy. I let AI create my entire video. You won't believe the results. 5 insane, easy ways to make videos using AI step by step. The future of content creation, how AI could make you a YouTube star. So all of these are pretty good. They include keywords. I don't typically use AI for my descriptions or for any of my titles, but I think this is great for ideation, and you can certainly use these. They're actually really good, probably better than what I do. But I think this is a real world example of how it works. So again, took 8 seconds. Here is what ChatGPT O1 produced. Let's take a look at what it did over on the other side of the fence with DeepSeek. All right, we did the same thing over on DeepSeek. We wrote 5 viral YouTube titles for video about creating video with AI. When it starts up, you will notice that it's going through that chain of thought and that reasoning, which is a little bit different than that of ChatGPT. Remember, we only saw kind of like the stages that it was going through. This is actually giving you the actual reasoning that those little AI agents or experts are going out to the model and producing what we're seeing now, which is 5 viral YouTube titles. Now you can read them, but AI just killed video editing, creates editing videos. The AI secret will change the way you do things. But one of the interesting things is it actually took 12 seconds versus 8 seconds. And down below here, you can take a look at more of that reasoning. Kind of cool that we're seeing a little bit of a peek underneath the hood. The other thing it actually gives us down below the titles here is some reasonings behind it and why it said it. Like the first one says, uses urgency, killed speed, and free to entice viewers seeking quick, cost-effective solutions. So these are just extra bits of information it gives us. And then down below that, we're seeing, other things like each title balances curiosity and urgency and clear value propositions. So all this extra data is pretty nice to have, and it seems like it does a pretty good job. The next thing we did is we asked it to write a 100-word YouTube description for one of the titles it generated. And again, we're just going to watch to see how fast it actually was able to produce the results and how good those results are. So you can see here, ChatGPT took 9 seconds to do this, and it created a description that sounds a little something like this. The future of content creation is here, and AI is leading the charge. In the eye-opening video, we dive into how artificial intelligence can revolutionize your YouTube channel and catapult you to success. From automated editing tools to AI-generated scripts, you'll discover cutting-edge strategies to produce professional, engaging videos without breaking a sweat. Learn how to harness the power of machine learning for research, scheduling, and optimizing your content for maximum reach. Join us as we explore real-world examples and predictions about the next wave of digital media, because the secret to becoming a YouTube star might just be AI. Watch now. So my initial impressions as someone who writes a lot of these, I actually don't use AI for any of this stuff, but I thought it was a good use case. And I think this is a pretty good description. I'm looking at it more so from, keywords, but also that it makes sense and that it's catchy. I like how they ended it, because the secret to becoming a YouTube star just might be AI. Watch now. So it gives it a really nice call to action there as well. Again, we only asked it for 100 words there, but overall, I think it did it pretty good. So let's check out what DeepSeek does. Now, over on the DeepSeek side, we asked it the same question: write a 100-word YouTube description for one of the titles that it actually gave us in the last step when we asked it to generate some viral titles. So right away, we'll see that it is thinking, and it gives us a peek again into its chain of thought and chain of reasoning. And here shortly, hopefully, we will see, yep, there it is. So we have a YouTube description, we have some timestamps, we have like, comments, some hashtags, and some tags, which is pretty cool. Now, if we scroll up to the very top, not the very top, but just right here, we can see it said, I used AI to create viral videos and it worked. You won't believe the results. Struggling to go viral. I challenged AI to make a video for me and the outcome blew my mind. In this experiment, I reveal how I use ChatGPT. ChatGPT, that's interesting. That does not show bias to me. They're actually pointing out to their competition. AI videos and futuristic tools. Craft a viral-worthy clip without scripting, editing, or even showing my face. Watch as I break down the shocking process from generating ideas in seconds to automating edits and look professional. Spoiler, the final video racked up thousands of views fast. Is AI the future of content creation? Now, if we scroll up to the top, it thought for 6 seconds, which is a little bit faster. We had 8 seconds actually for the other one, so for ChatGPT. So this did a good job. I also like how it organized it, gave us these emojis, and gave us some of this extra content, like some of our hashtags and some of our clips. It was faster, and at least in this case, I think it looks a little bit better. So I give a slight nod for the description being faster, but not the title creation. All right, now on to math. We just started off very simple on each one of these, asking it the question, what is bigger, 9.11 or 9.111? Now we see the ChatGPT's thinking came back in just a couple of seconds, and it says to compare 9.1 to 9.11, you can think of it as 9.11 as 9.110 when extending to 3 decimal places. Since 911.1 is greater than 911.0, 911.1 is larger. So again, that did pretty good. We went on to then ask it, what is the square root of 1897 divided by 8? I don't know, a whole crazy thing that I just made up, times by 100. Now this took 5 seconds to produce its results, and let's see, it came back with 541.81. Now we'll go over to DeepSeek and we'll ask it the same questions. On DeepSeek, same question, what is bigger, 911 or 9111? It went through and thought. Remember, over on ChatGPT, this happened in just a couple seconds. Obviously, this is taking a little bit longer, in fact, quite a bit longer to get us to the answer here. So we're waiting. So it seems like initially, at least, this mathematics question, which is pretty dang simple, is taking a long time. It'll also be interesting to see how long it reports it. I've been kind of counting in the back of my head, but nonetheless, at least let's see if it gets the correct answer. And it says final answer 9.11 is in fact bigger. But now let's go take a look to see how fast this did in fact take to get to this answer of 9.11 being larger. And let's see what it says here, 22 seconds. So literally it was 1 second for ChatGPT. It's 22 seconds for this simple equation. So now let's move on to ask it the same question about the square root. What is the square root of 1879 divided by, what did I say, 8 times 100? Same question I asked ChatGPT. Let's see how long this takes. So over on ChatGPT, it took 5 seconds to figure this out. I can tell you right now we'll be on 5 seconds, but let's see if it still gets the correct answer or a similar answer to ChatGPT. And it did. ChatGPT was 541.87 or 0.81. This one is 0.875. So, just the different ways it does math, but that's close enough because it's a weird question. But it took 8 seconds compared to 5 seconds. And counting in my head, I went to 10. Maybe I was counting too fast, but let's go ahead and say that this thing is not as fast either. Our next wave of tests is going to have to do with reasoning in AI. So I asked it first, if all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are square, then what is the relationship between a triangle and a square? Now, I just found this on the internet to test out the reasoning of AI, and we're going to see this should test it a little bit more. It's going to use a little bit more resources, so it's going to take a little bit longer, but pretty impressive with this ChatGPT R1 model. We're seeing it here in 13 seconds. Now, I won't bore you with the walkthrough, but it is just basically going through the explanation. And it went ahead and spit out some of the results here. And it says, in short, while triangles and squares are both polygons, they occupy completely separate branches within polygon classifications, 3-sided versus 4-sided. So the premise about squares being rectangle do not imply a special relationship between triangles and squares. What's also interesting is this time it chose to give us some of the reasoning here in just some of these bullet points, and it's laid out pretty nicely. This is one of the ones that I was surprised because typically we saw a better layout on something like DeepSeek. So we then asked it another question here, and we did another reasoning question. If a train is traveling east at 60 miles per hour and another train is traveling west at 50 miles per hour, how many hours will it take for them to meet? And if they are only currently 200 miles apart. So again, it has to reason, it has to use some math. And it does rather quickly here with ChatGPT in 5 seconds. And it says in terms of hours and minutes, 1.82 hours. And that equates over to 1 hour and 49 minutes. So quite impressive there. Let's go check out DeepSeek. Same question over on the deep side. If all squares and rectangles, but not rectangles or squares, what's the relationship? And it is going through and thinking and reasoning. It seems like it's taking a bit longer to definitely do. So I sped that up a little bit so you didn't have to sit through that. But triangle and squares are both polygons, pretty much came up with the same reasoning. Unlike squares and rectangles, there is no subset relationship between triangles and squares. So similar reasoning, but this thing had to have taken longer. We were at 13 seconds over there at ChatGPT, and we're at 37. So that's over double the time it took to get the same answer. And you can see the reasoning here. It seems to over reason it as compared to that of ChatGPT, or maybe ChatGPT is just better at reasoning. So let's maybe try to test it out with something else, and let's move towards that train question. So if we ask it, if a train is traveling east at 60 miles per hour, another train is traveling at 50 miles per hour, how many hours will it take if they are both moving at 200? So I asked the same question as this and ChatGPT, if they're currently 200 miles apart. So it's the same as that question. I got it off the internet, and it's going to think. Over on the other side, this took 5 seconds on ChatGPT. And again, seeing that we took so long on the first one, I imagine this one's not going to be that competitive. Let's see, it will take 20 over 11 hours. So 1.82 hours. That's the same answer that we got from ChatGPT. Let's take a look at how long. So 13 seconds. So again, over double, which is interesting. So again, we're just seeing it being a little bit slower, at least on this math section. So on to one of my favorites, the code portion. We just asked it to write an HTML version of Pong, and we submitted it, and it's thinking here on ChatGPT R1. This should take a little bit longer as well because it has a lot to do, but pretty impressively, it took 6 seconds. It probably is now. It looks like it's completely complete here. Let's now go over and test it out. One of the cool things about ChatGPT R1 is it's integrated with Canvas, which is just a browser technology that will then allow us to test a lot of our code inside of the ChatGPT ecosystem. Here it goes, spitting out some more information as we scroll down, just a little bit about an explanation of the code and everything else. But we're getting ready to now test it with that Canvas feature, which again just shows the maturity of ChatGPT. I was able to control this once I understood what's going on. I got my brain in sync. I was able to play it for a little bit, but it absolutely works. Over on the DeepSeek side, we asked the same question: write an HTML Pong game, and it starts to think again. And this one is looking like it could take a bit more time, so I'm gonna speed it up for you. Okay, we are finally done, and it looks like it did a pretty good job. Reading over some of the stuff gives you some description on how to play and some instructions. Code looks pretty cool. 20 seconds, that took a lot longer than 20 seconds. I think that's a bit of a fib. The interesting thing though that I saw was HTML. So you can run this as HTML now. I didn't think that was available, but they must have just added this. Let me see if I can play this real quick. I don't see where to start it. Looks like I'm able to move the frame, but I'm not seeing the paddles. I noticed a little glimpse of the paddle over there. Looks like it doesn't work as intended. So what we'll probably have to do is copy this over to an HTML file, and yeah, I'll be back to see if I can get it to play as an HTML file. Now I have it as a HTML file. I just saved it to Notepad, and now I'm able to play it. One of the cool things I noticed in the instruction is, unlike the other version, ChatGPT, which was really quick at, I think, what it do it in 6 seconds. It wrote it as a one-person game that you could play by yourself, but you could control both player 1 and player 2. This one's pretty interesting because it wrote it as me playing against AI. So that's probably why it also took a little bit longer, because it has some intelligence built in. But I kind of took this as a challenge. It was getting quite heated. I was like, I'm not going to let the AI bots take over humanity. And I fought through this game, but I didn't realize that there was no score limit. So like all good humans, I ended up just quitting. But you can see there's some lag here. There was some frame drops basically, but that's more so to do with Canvas or, the browser than it would be with the AI itself. I looked over the program and it looked pretty good. But again, I ended up quitting because I wasn't sure if it was even set. And it says right there, first player to score 10 points wins. And it seemed like it failed there. But overall, it was pretty good as well. It did take longer. So in code and math, it definitely takes a bit longer. In some instances, much more than double. So there you have it. So in conclusion, glancing over the fact that DeepSeek's work may revolutionize the way AI works in cost, and that's pretty darn impressive. And the fact that it's open source and on par with an enterprise paid version of ChatGPT, I think overall it's a pretty good win. I'm not sure how to feel, though, about seeing the reasoning. I'm conflicted. In one way, I like it. It's super handy, but it can also be really annoying. And I'm sure they'll eventually come up a way where you can hide that stuff. I think it's also done because, as we saw, I do not think DeepSeek is as fast as ChatGPT. And I think they're using this more as a marketing thing where they're showing you the reasoning behind it so that, they can kind of hide the fact that it is quite a bit slower. However, I did find that the response was more verbose, better organized, and it seemed like it had a lot of data injected into it that I didn't really ask, which did prove a bit useful. I felt there was a lot of fluff, though, just to be fluff. Again, in my mind, using the chain of reasoning to hide the fact that it really isn't as fast. And while ChatGPT was a lot faster, it wasn't as verbose, but I think it was more succinct. And when you're in business, speed is everything. So ChatGPT to me, and as it should be, seems like the more polished product in its reasoning and response and speed. But for the R1 greenhorn that will learn to be better, that would just stumbled onto the scene or actually barged onto the scene, DeepSeek holds it down and is more than impressive. But I don't think you should believe the narrative China and DeepSeek is pushing. DeepSeek absolutely does have its charms, watching it reason, a glimpse into the mind that is as interesting as it is scary. But they've certainly made the mark in history of AI, and I think the methods they developed will lead to more AI adoption, creating better, faster, less expensive, less resource-intensive models, and also force folks like ChatGPT to consider lowering their prices and perhaps releasing more free tiers. But let it not be misunderstood. If it's true, what DeepSeek did is akin to a renaissance in a modern AI world. But there are rumors they stole the data from OpenAI. But let's be honest, where do you think OpenAI got their data? They scraped the internet. I do think the market reactions and lowering NVIDIA's price target was done by pundits that don't fully understand how AI works, how token works, and why businesses are not going to put their IP on China's servers. Sure, they can host it local, but trust is a large thing in corporate America. I don't see large adoptions by industry as paying for peace of mind is still a common practice in American business. But I do think that personal users and small businesses may flock to the cheaper DeepSeek. With greater adoption, even with cheaper tokenomics and cheaper GPUs, it still drives the demand for NVIDIA's hardware. And yes, you could see many people opting to use AMD, but AMD to this day is second class in terms of results on GPUs as compared to NVIDIA's. Further, as a former crypto miner and avid gamer, NVIDIA isn't going to continue to produce cheaper, older models, as when demand outpaces the ability to buy lesser than NVIDIA GPUs, they're going to be forced to buy the newer versions. And as a hard crypto miner, GPUs wear out pretty darn fast with consistent use, so a replacement strategy is needed. And considering in this dominant narrative, they're going to be forced to use hardware that they may not find. And in the future, they're going to have to purchase hardware, probably from NVIDIA. So as for me, I will use ChatGPT professionally for the most part. But at home and in my local instance, I'll use DeepSeek, but I'll use something they call a distilled model, which is much smaller than the 700B and more around the 14B. And the reason I'm using it is because it is the fastest 14B that I've found that runs on my local hardware. And of course, you can't really download ChatGPT as it stands right now and put it in a local environment. So I do think it has a leg up for a lot of us hobbyists, but is that going to be a whole swath of people that have decided to use this instead of ChatGPT? No, I really think it's going to be used in conjunction with ChatGPT, like what I'm doing. As a developer, though, I definitely intend to shift my focus to building AI agents and plugging into some of the APIs just to build and test DeepSeek. Having the ability to plug into a model that's just as good or pretty dang close to the newest ChatGPT paid model for free or at little cost, to me is a no-brainer. But then again, I don't have sensitive IP I'm working with. If I was working with a client that had sensitive IP, it would 100% be pushed to ChatGPT. But I will say my mind, and my entrepreneur mind, wonders of building and hosting local boxes and AI agents for small businesses and what this could mean in the future. Is everyone going to have a box like I have and not even have to worry about connecting to China servers, for example? Who knows? But I think the future, we may see more of this like we see personal PCs, that people are having personal AI boxes. DeepSeek definitely has some proving to do, but they have just changed the game in my opinion. And it's not anything that's going to replace. I think all it's done is force the hand of the kings. But these kings are not dumb kings. And the red tides of deception, in my mind, are very strong. Testing and benchmarks, in my mind, in use, are a little bit off, especially when it comes to speed. And I do think that they built it for more. And I do think they're operating at a deficit. And if you are an investor, I think this is pretty important. I don't think NVIDIA is in trouble. In fact, I just think they got a whole host of new users. And the more adoption of AI, the more it's going to need the hardware. AMD, from my research, is still far away from competing with NIVIDA. And NIVIDA, as I mentioned, has a sore habit of not producing older things. So with these things going to very likely wear out pretty quickly with the amount of people using R1, they're going to need a replacement strategy. And what's going to happen when they can't find lesser than NVIDIA models? Are they going to just shut down? I ran into a lot of issues connecting to their server. So in my opinion, they're already seeing some of those growing pains. This freakout is well overdone. With all the things happening between United States and China, this is just another bargaining chip, another tool, another freakout moment, another way to test our economy. And unfortunately, here in America, we're rather sensitive and it seems like we're thrown off very easily. China has keyed in onto this with our pandemic and now with many economic things that they're doing. Now that we're looking at a lot of different political forces, like things like tariffs, I think this is just another thing that goes hand in hand, but we're now in this great race on many different fronts. But you're racing with someone that uses a lot of Trojan horses, and you need to be well concerned with where you're putting your data, unless you want it to end up over at the Red Kingdom. Anyways, my name's Hill Phantom, and I'll see you next time.